Okay. Is it recording?
Mhm.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Just a quick introductions. Again, introductions again. Sorry. Angelita Jesus.
Assistant
You first.
Young.
Rob Osmondson.
Danielle Fulton.
Oh, Jess, we couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Jessica Long.
Hello. Okay, so today we're gonna pretty much analyze our interview we had earlier this week. I'll just go through the questions and we can go one by one, kind of round robin questions. So how do you think it went? How did the interview go for everyone?
I think it went well. The way we had it set up and structured definitely made it a lot easier. I think it would have been just a large free for all where people ask whatever comes to their mind. We might have been just tripping over each other, and so I think we structured it well. And it didn't take quite as long as I thought it would. I thought it was going to be a little. I mean, I thought it was going to be a little bit longer, but I think went all right overall.
Yeah, I think it went well too. I agree with you, Rob. I thought the structure was really great, that we had mapped everything out, and that we all knew, what we were asking, where it was going to lead. And I think we did a really good job as a team preparing for it.
One thing that I appreciated about it was that the transitions worked really well. So like one person to the next, it wasn't like a weird awkward pause, like, oh, who's next? We kind of all knew like who to pass the ball to.
Yeah, I think it went really good. The questions overall were really good. When I looked at the questions and kind of tried to get what the meaning was of each one, it gave me a lot to talk about. So I actually sat down and just wrote out all my answers, just because I wanted to make sure that I was succinct as possible, but still hit all the points that I wanted to hit. So just having that in advance, just was really good.
It also flowed very well. It went into the next thing very well, and we all, as you said, Angeline, it transitioned very well. So I liked how it went.
Yeah, it was really good. I think Dave did a good job of answering all the questions that we had. I was concerned about the time at points, because some of the questions went a little bit faster than the others, but overall I think it did really well.
Angela, you're on mute.
Hello, sorry, my
There you
dog
go.
was barking. Something else I appreciated was that as we asked Dave questions, we also referenced back to his previous answers and tied that in. So it wasn't just us asking him a question that we were assigned, but also tying interactively asking those questions.
Yeah, that's a good point. I felt like everybody was really engaged when they were asking.
Yes, that's the word, engaged.
So that helps too, right? Somebody's actively listening to you. I think that's very helpful.
Good. So the next one is, did you learn much about whichever topic you decided to focus the interview on?
I think when we're talking about teams and how we've dealt with teams and how we've handled teams, all the questions that we asked Dave, and all of his experience that he brought, and awesome stories too. I have to admit, I told a few of them to my husband after we were done with our speech. Like the peanut one was so awesome. But I feel like the experiences that he had and really led a lot to our learnings, and I think it really supported all the questions that we had to ask.
Really
Sorry,
made
my kid just got home.
It's okay. One thing that I appreciated was that, gosh, I lost my train. Carl's kids are so cute. I appreciated that Dave gave examples and we're able to ask follow-up questions. I liked how Dave gave the answers not only as a leader, but also like as a team member. So it was kind of like you could see the transition in his in his leadership development and how he learned from that and his reflection from that. And I think the questions that we provided or we kind of cultivated really brought that out as well.
Yeah, I'd say that's that was part of my learning too, was that it made me go back and examine my entire history, because you really don't I don't usually take time to just sit down and reflect about everything. But I was trying to keep it a balance between just that stories that where I was the team member versus what I was doing as a leader. And it, then all of a sudden I started to see the connection, like the reason that I act this way or the reason I do this now is because of really specific incidents that happened to me, and just the way it made me feel, the way that other people acted, the way that the leader was a good leader or a bad leader. It really does become an accumulation of all that stuff in your head, either consciously or subconsciously. So that was my biggest thing, just rehashing all that stuff really brought it back.
And I think that just reading through chapter 11, a big part of that was how sincere you were, and that what did it say? The chapter talked about one of the key factors of a qualitative research is the sincerity behind it.
Yeah, credibility.
Mm-hmm. So the next one, did anybody else have anything to add? Okay. So the next one, what did you learn about the in-depth interview as a data gathering technique?
I guess that it would have to be, if you're really going to use it for data gathering, it's really, really got to be structured. You would really have to just ask the same questions, and I think you'd have to have a lot more, it couldn't just be open-ended. You couldn't just have open-ended questions every time. You really, because I think it would be hard to take what I said and to quantify it in any way,
But I think with the way we structured it as an interview, like every interview guide I've ever had has like kind of like a scoring sheet at the end to look at behavior. And so like I think if we go in and kind of build that scoring sheet, I think that would cover it as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But I think typically, at least for the interviews that I've done and been in, it's all behavioral based, and I think all of those aspects were reflected in your answers. Did anyone else have anything to add on that? The next two questions I'll kind of combine. Identify one thing that you think went very well and analyze what you think why you think it did, and then vice versa, like if you think anything went wrong and why you think it went wrong.
Don't know if anything went wrong in our interview, and it's always hard to try to pinpoint, where you could have done better or what you could have, how you could have approached something differently. But like we talked about in the beginning, I feel like we had such a good approach to the interview itself and writing the questions and coming up with our thought processes and how we were going to ask the questions, that it helped us, I think, become really successful. And I think that's one thing we did really well was, like we had talked about, we just structured the interview really well. So it gave everybody that opportunity to sort of be in sync with one another.
Yeah, I agree. I think the structure kept the interview flowing in the right direction. But I kind of almost thought maybe we should have, because we all kind of followed our questions, and I don't know, most interviews I've been in, it's always been kind of everybody has like follow-up questions to interject, but we seem to kind of just strictly follow the structure of our interview layout. I was thinking that we would kind of have more
organic interaction.
Openness. Everybody kind of chiming in after a question was asked, but I mean, it still worked out just fine.
Yeah. No, I totally get what you're saying. I was thinking the same thing, but I was also thinking like maybe we could have added a section at the end to kind of go around the room and let people ask any follow-up questions they had, or we could have said to do it organically. Just throughout and kind of raise your hand, do some sort of signal if you had a follow-up question. It is kind of hard too on virtual meeting spaces, platforms, to just chime in, because then you're like fumbling to take yourself off mute and all that. Yeah. So I do think like some sort of signal, and that would have been something we could have put in the charter. Like if you find a follow-up question, kind of just raise your hand or something.
Yeah, I want to interview you guys. I want to hear all your stories now. I want to hear your good team experiences and your bad team experiences.
I think the class isn't long enough.
No, we got to take it over
again. Does anybody else have any thoughts on what went well, what could have been improved?
I think it would have been interesting to see if Angeli, how you guys, because we have the same kind of scoring with our interview process, if we had come up with our own scoring rubric to see if we would have actually
hired David. Have Dave send us his resume.
I got to add a lot of coffee related stuff now.
We are hiring shift supervisors in Pennsylvania.
It's between that and Uber, I think, at this point.
We're only allowed to use Lyft.
No, I'm saying me as a driver. That's 2 job choices.
Oh, we have Uber Eats out here. It's amazing.
Oh, really?
So the next question is, what did you learn about teams and leading teams from your interview, from your interviewee? One thing I learned was that teams are unpredictable, and size matters. The size of teams matters, just from the stories that Dave has told us. That it really does impact the way you lead and how your teams interact.
You had a lot of examples of really impactful leaders, or really big leaders, like the Jimmy Jones. Is that his name? did I get Jimmy Johnson, and then the same guy with the you said he was the CEO with the Peanut story, and I feel like in your experience you've had these impactful leaders, and so I guess for me it's kind of, even though I know we're not all going to be that all at the same time, but those moments that leaders have that really impact, you know, the people for forever, even if it was just that one moment or that one story, you see things differently just from that experience. And I thought that was really cool.
And
I
just,
think you,
oh, go ahead.
I think you also show that it's not, yes, people, you know, can have stronger leadership skills, but leading a team is not something that you just acquire overnight. It's definitely a growing process. Something that you learn along the way.
Yeah, I really like this Jimmy Johnson story that shows how, as much as you'd like to, you can't treat every person in the team exactly the same as every other one. Certain players in a team have certain roles, sometimes some more important than others. I think definitely in today's culture, we try to, as much as we can, create or like treat everybody as equal as possible. But there are certain circumstances that you can't do that, and you have to recognize that as a leader and understand how to handle it.
Yeah, I think sometimes treating everyone the same can be just as unfair, right?
Yeah.
If you have somebody in your organization that's been working hard for 10 years, right, versus like the rookie in that story who just got there a month ago, right? You don't want to treat everybody the same in those kind of situations.
Yeah, and for those people that actually do try, I think it just adds more stress as a leader to just try and make sure everybody is exactly the same. Whereas if you had just realized from the beginning that there are certain differences amongst people in the team, it'd be less stressful in how to lead the group.
I think people kind of they kind of find their own level in the organization, you know, if they really, and it varies, I think, over time too. Some people, you know, I've seen some people make really, really big contributions, but then, you know, life happens. You know, they have kids, they get a family situation, they get an illness, and performance will drop off. And so it's not just, you know, people and they're at a defined level for their entire career. So, you know, it does vary over time.
Just one thing that I thought was interesting is that how that speech or that interaction impacted you, Dave, and it made me think about the things that I say to people and how long it's going to stick with them and how it could impact them. Because sometimes, I mean, I talk to people I work with and they say like, oh, 3 years ago you said this to me and it really stuck with me. And it's like, I don't remember even saying that, but okay. So just knowing that words matter and we have the opportunity to influence people by those words on a daily basis, no matter how small or how big it is.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, one thing I really enjoyed about the interview was seeing you like self-reflect as you were saying, you know, the questions and like how much you've changed over the years. I've never really thought about that until this interview, and I was like, wow, I was a lot different 5 years ago, you know, and you think of like the type of leader you are now in comparison to years ago and how you do things differently and why you do things differently. I think it's really good to think about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's one advantage of making a lot of mistakes early, right? You at least cut down on some of the unforced errors, you know. So you're going back to Angelique's point about just like being quotable or that, you know, I have some bad stories where for some reason, I'm just ridiculously quotable at work. So somebody will come back and go, remember when you said this? And then, you know, it's like, oh God. Yeah.
Angela, you're on mute again.
It's just my facial expressions. My dog's barking, so I don't want him barking while you guys are talking. So the last question is, looking at your team charter and thinking about any problems that you had either before or during the interview, or both, what in the charter helped you resolve any problems? What would have been good to have in the charter to make resolving those problems even easier? I think for me, it's just what we were talking about earlier about building in that organic or that space where we can kind of just free for all and ask Dave any follow-up questions or anything that was on our mind. But one thing I did think worked well was the timekeeping. We assigned somebody to timekeeping, so we kind of knew like where we were at time-wise.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we went along with the charter pretty well. I don't know that we had any conflicts or anything, but for stuff like under conflict resolution, we had engage in rational conflict discussions, remain cooperative, and I think we just had that spirit anyway, whether it was just because it wasn't a conflict. I think we followed a lot of that stuff that we had written in the charter.
Did anybody else have anything else to add? Anything we could have added to the charter, how we use the charter? Okay. That was the last of the questions on the assignment, but if anybody else had anything else to add. I just wanted to thank Dave for being our interviewee and kind of sharing and being so transparent with his stories and his experience.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
That was fun.
Yeah, I don't think I could have come up with near as good of stories as you came up with. It made the interview process fun.
Could you tell which stories were real and which stories weren't?
I was relieved too when you were done. I was like, oh my gosh, if I had been you, could I have done that? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. My wife has to listen to them every day.
You should send her your video.
Yeah.
You should send her the YouTube video link.
She knows all those stories. She could tell you the peanut story in her sleep.
Well, sounds
Then
good.
we picked the right guy, right?
All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording unless anybody else had anything. Okay. Let me hit